Hey everyone. There are people out there that are willing to do anything to be seen as important, or are stubborn enough to just not care about what happens to them after, because they have a sort of tunnel vision where they can only see and imagine the future where they get praised. And there was no time that I felt like this was the case more than the story in this video, where a guy went from a dating coach, I say in air quotes, to a self-titled journalist that flew all the way to Ukraine during when the war was starting, just to make it seem like he was reporting on it. And not to mention all the crazy stuff he was talking about in his dating advice videos and forums, which just sounded like the ramblings of a madman. This wouldn't sound too bad until people started seeing him as a legitimate journalist, which starts to become worse with them actually believing him. And during a situation like this, it goes without saying that it's just an awful thing to make up lies and fake news.
In the past few days, I've seen a lot of political pundits bringing up the death of YouTuber Gonzalo Lira, otherwise known by his internet handle, Coach Red Pill.
But on social media, there were a few people
Not the name, Coach Red Pill.
what seemed like a pretty honest way from within Ukraine, and one of them was an American citizen called Gonzalo Lira.
While yes, it is true that his death at the hands of the Ukrainian government is a good angle to take for those against funding their war effort, I find it funny that almost everyone talking about this story doesn't bring up the actual insanity of who this YouTuber was, and why he was in a foreign war zone to begin with. So today I figured I'd tell you a bit about the life and death of this internet oddity. To start this story out, Gonzalo was born on February 29th in 1968 in Burbank,
Old man.
in several different countries including Ecuador and Chile. He graduated college in 1985 and taught English in South America until 1991, before receiving a bachelor's in history and philosophy in 1995. It was after this that Gonzalo moved back to LA to pursue work as a writer and producer. He found some success.
Is that why in Hollywood slightly more forward than all of the other letters?
Critically panned, though his second had its film rights sold to Miramax. However, his career path changed entirely in 2010, after starting his blog. For the next 3 years, he published his thoughts on subjects like economics, even getting reposted by Business Insider. It was his first major step into the online space, but this paled in comparison to the attention he would soon receive on YouTube, where he discussed dating and relationship advice under the name of Coach Red Pill. Needless to say,
What a weird, it can't make sense. Red Pill for like love, for dating advice.
Are like dogs. They are exactly like dogs. And never forget that. You have to treat them like you would treat a dog.
Sing it, Coach Red Pill.
Firmly. Every woman I've ever been with responds extraordinarily well to a almost violent physical encounter.
To a walking stick across their head, they love it.
Over 300,000 subscribers. He became quite a notable figure in the manosphere, appearing on a variety of different podcasts and internet blood sports panels.
You don't see that in Eastern Europe. Oh no. I mean, a lot of these girls, they're fucking virgins. Yeah, they're virgins until they get married, and they're very adamant about it. Yeah. Because they know the value of their sexuality.
It's bizarre having this guy for a really disgusting, scraggly beard talk about virgins Ukraine.
November 15th, 2021, when every video on his channel disappeared. They were instead replaced with a final message for his fans. He explained that the West was on the brink of war with China and would fall into totalitarianism.
I wish he was doing like a The West Has Fallen meme with that soy jack. I love that meme.
Viewers to follow in his footsteps, stating that they wouldn't get another warning. This plan, as it turns out, had been in the making for quite some time. In the months prior, he scouted out the location with plans of forming an enclave. I could buy a big house in downtown Kharkiv. They're cheap, and let Western dissidents use it as a landing zone or meeting house. Dissidents could stay for 30 days for free at this house, but you'd be expected to help in the upkeep or improvement of the landing zone. The end goal was to...
I love how people like this, like delusional, are also like really good at making like battle plans for an invasion, trying to like gather up like a small militia of people to fight this imaginary war. It's funny how people like that are this paranoid about conspiracies around the world are still really bad at making plans for in the event that it would happen. And his best idea is to make like a landing zone in a tiny crack den in Ukraine. What does it mean, landing zone? Sure, people would have to go for like an airport, and the police isn't gonna ignore 300 people going to the same house every single time. They're gonna be like, what's going on?
With him. In the subsequent post, he outlined the rules for this proposed compound. Every resident was expected to contribute 2 hours of labor 6 days a week. No drugs, alcohol...
It's pretty nice, to be honest. Only 2 hours a day and I get to live in the paradise that is Ukraine on the brink of war? Hell yeah.
...or a call to police. Though this could be circumvented with a street fight. It was a place of free speech, unless you insulted Gonzalo himself, which led to an instant eviction with no exceptions. Finally, the landing zone was...
If you already have free reign over this small empire in Ukraine, in this random small house, you might as well go all the way and just behead them right there in the living room.
If all this wasn't strange enough, things took an even more bizarre turn once Gonzalo announced Project Mayhem. It was named after the organization from Fight Club, which had left a deep impression on...
This guy's a
I think it was
teenager.
in 1999 that the movie Fight Club came out. And it hit me like a train. And I went to see it on the first day, and I loved it. I liked it enough that I saw it another time that week. And during the course of its theatrical run, I must have seen it at least 4 times. It had a huge impact on me the first half. The second half got stupid.
On December 11th...
How can you like a movie when the second time you watch it, like, this sucks, this is nothing?
This is Mayhem, and this is your first homework assignment. Toothpicks. Cheap, small, harmless, effective. Clog the enemies up with toothpicks. He instructed his viewers to jam the locks of any and all buildings their enemies depended on.
Oh, I thought he meant like kill people with actual toothpicks. I was like, what? I feel like making your own like made up gun, not made up, like improvised gun would be more effective than getting
Some
toothpicks.
followed in his footsteps with clips surfacing of individuals doing what they were told.
Oh hell yeah. That's badass.
The absurdity of this
Clogging up the lock of some random liquor store in Ukraine. Hell yeah.
from Kiwi Farms, who put him on the front page. They noted he was doing
it's
so
Kiwi
while
Farms? Oh,
living in a
God.
war zone in eastern Ukraine. It spurred debate, as at the time Kharkiv appeared quite far from the war zone. However, Russia was mobilizing troops along the border, which meant if Russia launched a third invasion, he would be directly in conflict. Gonzalo continued undeterred, streaming frequently in the coming months. He disputed any notion of Russia buildup, going so far as to call it propaganda. I am in Kharkiv, Ukraine.
I just want to get it out the way, but I love how... No, I don't want to say I love it, but it is interesting to see how the evolution of war has went from like no one knowing about it, because of course there was no internet, to now people even being in like the actual war zone, being able to stream it for everyone to see. It is interesting. And until people like him that just bat crazy start doing it every single day.
Know what's going on. No war is coming. It is a complete fabrication. I think the Americans are planning a false flag operation that they think will make it seem that Russia are the aggressors. Project Mayhem appeared to be in full swing until February 24th, 2022, when Russia invaded Ukraine in the largest attack on a European country since World War II.
I like to imagine all the guys are just like rushing down the streets and everyone's like he's the one guy that's like, oh, they're all fake flags, they're actually American.
I am in Kiev in Krashatik once again. I went to visit some friends, and I'm walking back to my hotel, and I can tell you that it feels very much like the eye of the hurricane. It's just very, very peaceful, as you can see. I don't know if you can see the traffic, but it's just very ordinary.
He was only supposed to be there for a day, arriving by plane. The invasion led to all flights to be cancelled and every train to be booked. The only way out would have been...
I just respect him because I really feel like he would have been a pussy and just immediately flown back to his safe haven in America. But the fact that he stayed there as the army was advancing, then that takes some balls, you know?
Due to the colossal traffic jam. This meant he was trapped in Kyiv while his wife and 2 children remained in Kharkiv. The next day, air raid sirens would be heard.
I couldn't care less about him, but his family being dragged into this. Well, that's pretty messed up. Did he actively go to Ukraine with his family, knowing full well like the turmoil going on between Ukraine and Russia? That's f***ed up.
Yeah, there are air raid sirens.
In light of this, one would think the best course of action would be to prioritize your own safety. But this was not the case. Instead, 3 days later, Gonzalo began criticizing Ukraine and calling its leadership evil.
What really bothers me is that the Zelensky regime has no trouble causing a humanitarian crisis. In fact, they welcome a humanitarian crisis. They would love to see dead Ukrainians. And I know this for a fact.
He even uploaded a video insulting journalists to their faces.
All the System Pig journalists are here. See? All these people, they're all System Pig journalists.
Dude, how are you so tone deaf? You like factories being bombed around you, and the main thing you want to do is go harass people at restaurants.
Points came directly from Kremlin media, with even the host calling his views optimistic. This was enough to catch the attention of Russia Today, a state-controlled television network funded by the Russian government. His commentary was used by RT to bash Ukraine and the West. The report spread onto Twitter, where people immediately began scrutinizing him. His confidence was attributed to the fact that he had a Chilean passport. CRP thinks he's bulletproof because he's got his Chilean passport on him, and Chile and Russia have what he thinks are strong diplomatic ties. Gonzalo was ultimately removed from the hotel by management, but allowed to leave for Kharkiv by train. Even still, he reiterated his previous sentiments, claiming it was all a distraction of war by the West. He did, however, issue a statement on the use of his analysis for Russian propaganda. Gonzalo revealed he suffered personal mistreatment in Kyiv as a result of the broadcast, as well as death threats. He clarified
he might have gotten some, but I feel like he's overblowing it way more to make it seem like his experience was horrible.
The next day he doubled down, disabling comments due to the sheer number of threats. Not helping the matter was his video being shared by Ramzan Kadyrov, leader of the Chechen Republic and a colonel general in the Russian military. By this point, his life appeared to be in constant danger, but Gonzalo only became more inflammatory for seemingly no reason. That made it extremely concerning when on April 16th, he uncharacteristically went silent. That included no showing a podcast he was scheduled to appear on. The host revealed he lost contact with Gonzalo, formally announcing he'd gone missing. Then hours later, an unconfirmed...
Is that some host in a Russian station? He looks like so un-Russian, it's weird.
SBU after an investigation of Russian spies. Ukrainian authorities confirm 1830 local time. Despite its dubious authenticity, many took it as fact and reacted as they would to his passing. It was amended the next day by Sarah Ashton Cirillo, a spokesperson for the Ukraine's Territorial Defense Forces. This was corroborated by Gonzalo himself 4 days later, emerging alive and well. The YouTuber confirmed he was picked up by the SBU and had his technology confiscated. While he couldn't say much publicly, he was forbidden to leave Kharkiv. After all of this, you may think his instigation in the active war zone may have slowed down, but it did not, as within weeks he was challenging Keemstar to a debate on the subject of Ukraine. That August, he was called out...
Not picking a fight, but instigating with Keems on Twitter while you're in a country that's on the brink of war.
By YouTuber Jake Bro for trying to pressure him into appearing on his channel.
Look, one of two things are going to happen, Jake. Either you're on my roundtable defending your position, or I'm making a video of why you're not going to be on my roundtable. Your choice.
Even pro-Russia accounts grew tired of him as they dug up his old...
I feel like you should be missing that survival instinct to be staying in Ukraine during that time and try to make an impact of how incredible you are.
Thin, as he became known as the dating coach who taught men how to sleep with Eastern European women. He was finally able to secure a debate in January of 2023 with streamers Destiny and Laserpig. Laserpig was a vocal critic of Gonzalo, criticizing his Ukrainian roundtables. Laser later claimed to know the actual reason he was being investigated by the SBU, alleging he was a spy, had self-deported, and was no longer in Ukraine.
It's not... No, he's self-deported.
Oh, he ran!
No, he asked to be deported because when he was arrested, okay...
Right.
What he was doing, he was arrested because of he was potentially a spy. He thought he was a spy because what he was doing was running around Kharkiv, taking pictures of Ukrainian positions and Ukrainian troops and everything. And it turns out he was being paid to take pictures of the Ukrainian artillery positions and mortar positions.
This was disproven
by Russia. And to be fair, that wouldn't make sense of why he got deported.
with footage of the raid surfacing days later. The official video is strangely edited like a viral short, with shots displaying his dirty bathroom and toilet. He'd stayed in Ukraine after all, likely due to the
This looks like one of those like Ready or Not missions where you SWAT the guy and you deport him out the country.
63-2. They referenced his denial of the Bucha massacre and a video of him insulting Ukrainian soldiers. He was formally charged on June 29th and released.
I figured during that time that is the worst time to insult them because they're so like torn apart by the war. They would not care what random journalist from America they killed.
The day before his next hearing, he posted the following. Right now I'm trying to get out of Ukraine and seek political asylum in Hungary. Either I'll cross the border and make it to safety, or I'll be disappeared by the Kyiv regime. This is what happened to me over the past 3 months. I was imprisoned because of my videos, no doubt. The videos are why the SBU arrested me, but as they investigated me, they realized that I'm not poor. So once they had me imprisoned for my videos, the SBU took the opportunity to extort money from me, using the guards as accomplices, who in turn used the prisoners as muscle. How I discovered this is too complicated in a Twitter thread, but I'm writing a book about it. In total, he claimed to have...
Chief, when I see a YouTube channel called Coach Red Pill, I do see an ocean worth of gold.
The same is happening. They're telling me not to leave, but leaving the door open, or so I hope. Or maybe I'm being set up by them so they can justify putting me away in a labor camp so no one will ever know about their sword extortion scheme. I simply don't know. So I decided to die trying. I rode my motorcycle across Ukraine, 1,400 kilometers in 2 days.
Oh, that looks badass. I can imagine his disgusting, scraggly beard flapping in the wind on his bike.
Filed 3 days later. He appeared in front of the court on August 4th, where it was decided to re-detain him. He was transported back to Kharkiv, where he awaited trial. It was around this time that his story caught the attention of Tucker Carlson, who had recently been fired from Fox News. That June, the anchor released his first official Tucker segment on Twitter, with a portion criticizing Ukraine. He followed this up weeks later with a reference to Coach Red Pill.
Just last month, Zelensky threw a man called Gonzalo Lira into prison indefinitely for the crime of daring to write about the Ukrainian government in unflattering ways. Now, what's interesting, what separates this from other such cases, is that Lira is an American citizen. So Joe Biden, who is quite a bit of SWAT, as they say in Ukraine, could have freed Gonzalo Lira within hours.
What does that mean, SWAT?
He didn't want to. He didn't say a word about it. He remains in prison tonight.
On December 9th, Tucker dedicated an entire segment to the prisoner. He highlighted the lack of a U.S. response and interviewed his father, who read out a statement. The clip received over 40 million views, propelling the story to the mainstream.
God.
Elon Musk...
I wish I could see the replies, because and stuff like this on Twitter, it does have like the most brain-rotting replies you can ever imagine.
A witness in the case. In an effort to gain sympathy, Gonzalo Lira made up allegations of abuse and torture. As someone who spoke to him shortly after he was returned to custody, it was clear that he was in good health and treated extremely fairly by the state security services. It's worth noting now that
he really feels like a kid that went to like some summer camp, not summer camp, but a place that he was treated nicely, but to make an impression, he made it seem like he was treated horribly.
I'm going to live very long because of a heart condition that I have. I'm not going to go into the specifics of it because it's nobody's business but my own.
It's no one's business, but I'm doing quite good, but I'm not, because I'll probably die, but I'm not going to say off what, just leave me alone.
18 months, 24 months, something like that.
If true, this placed him at a far greater risk for any potential health complications. On January 4th of this year...
I know this is very, pull out of my ass, guess, but I feel like if he died of the heart condition, he would have made his fans believe that he was killed by the state, by Ukraine, just to make it seem like they were doing something shady.
A letter purported to be from Gonzalo was made public. I have had double...
There's only 2 minutes left. I want to see what happened, because he did say he was killed.
And a very severe case of edema, swelling of the body. All this started in mid-October, but was ignored by the prison. They only admitted I had pneumonia at a December 22nd hearing. I'm about to have a procedure to reduce the edema pressure in my lungs, which is causing me extreme shortness of breath, to the point of passing out after minimal activity, or even just talking for 2 minutes. His father fought for his son to receive proper medical attention for weeks, but in the end, it was unsuccessful. On January 12th, Gonzalo Lira passed away in a hospital at the age of 55. His death was confirmed by the United States and Chilean governments. As mentioned at the start of this
if he was in the afterlife, he was probably pissed over that title. US finally confirms American dating coach, as if like he really wanted to be like a martyr and die as a journalist just to promote his message.
Brought to this story, many of whom were critical of the US's involvement in the war effort.
Lira, with his work, was committing acts of journalism. Let's contrast the silence on the case, for example, to the Russian detention of Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich.
They martyred Gonzalo, declaring him a journalist and praising his work as a filmmaker. And with that, I only can laugh at how a story can so easily get spun to be so one note. Was Coach Red Pill detained for free speech and treated poorly in prison? Yes. But was he some noble and respected journalist? No. At the end of the day, Mr. Lira will go down as a side note of the 2010s anti-SJW and Red Pill movements online. It was mental illness mixed with an overwhelming level of hubris that brought him to Ukraine in the first place, and a disregard for his and his family's own safety despite warnings every step of the way. Because of this, his father is now left without
is that his dad or is that him?
His wife without a husband.
He looks like an onion.
Young children without a father. He took his edgy internet persona to a war zone and paid the ultimate price.
You know what? If he didn't have a family, he would probably loved that outcome. Some people really just want to like leave an impression on the world, and they want to make it seem like as huge as possible. And even though it was edgy, it clearly worked when he got Tucker Carlson to like speak about him and like promote him as like a really trustworthy journalist. The one part I just feel horrible for it is like his family being dragged into this, like his wife and 2 kids brought into this country that, I'm not gonna lie, if the country wasn't in a war, there really is no appeal factor to go to Ukraine. Like I can't really think of any like tourist attractions in that country. So I really want to know, like, how did he sell the idea to his family to go there for like a short while? Like, did he just make it seem like a holiday, or did he make it very clear that he wanted to die a martyr and be seen as like a really important figure and like as a bookmark in this section of history? Because I definitely feel like there were people that watched or like read the tweet about him and how he died, and they barely took the time to see like the kind of stuff he was posting during his time there in the country. Like that one part where he went out of his way to go to restaurants and like harass the journalists there, being like, there he is, spreading lies around the news. It just seems so childish to me. Like, surely there would be bigger issues in your life than going out and wasting your time doing that kind of stuff. I've never really thought about it, but people would love to be in a position where they die by doing nothing, but the people that see their death treat them like a higher figure and made it seem like they had a way bigger impact on what they did when it was basically minimal, like close to nothing. I'm gonna be honest, you know.